Welcome to Think Theory Radio, the show that brings you topics outside the mainstream realm of thought and ideas to make you think. And I'm your host, Damian Perdue, your beer drinking guide on this audio ride of occult delights. And of course, I'm joined by Paulie C.
Yo, yo, yo.
Today, the C stands for cryo hops. I don't know. Do you use cryo hops?
Not so much. Not so much.
Think of it. What's a C? What's a beer related C word?
Citra?
Citra hops. There you go. Or Citra in general. And that other voice is our lovely guest, Brian Buckman.
Good evening.
From Illuminated Brew Works.
Yes.
A local brewery. Not just local as in the Chicago sense, but local as in the local neighborhood sense, because you were not far.
About a half mile away, I think.
Up in Norwood Park.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it took me 7 minutes to get here from the shop.
Nice. Yeah. That's one of the reasons we ended up there.
Okay.
The proximity.
Good.
All those years ago.
We came for you.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of funny because we'd always hit up
Vaughn's.
Yeah, Vaughn's.
But we were looking for something different, and we were like, wait a minute, there's like an occult themed bar, like not stone's throw away. Like, how have we not heard of this place?
Yeah, exactly.
Right on.
And it was a match made in hell.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we've tried to get you back on that. We did the show at the brewery.
That's right.
That was about 3 years ago, I think. 2 or 3 years
ago.
ago.
2 or 3 years ago,
I think, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah, because I think it was early 2002.
Sure.
2002.
Okay.
2002.
22 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Time's not linear, man.
No.
You know?
It's a flat circle.
Exactly. Who knows what year it really is or where we even really are?
No. These are all great questions.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to get you on for a minute. We did do the remote at the brewery, and that was cool because you had like a library full of conspiracy books.
I brought some books. I did.
That was pretty great.
Yeah.
And we did the show live there, had some fun. But I've been wanting to get you back on, especially in studio, because it'd be dope to do another remote over there. But bring you into our world.
Yes. This is less stressful for you, too, I would imagine.
Yeah. A little less stressful. A little less packing and unpacking of equipment.
Yeah.
And,
breaking and unbreaking of equipment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, the brewery itself, like I said, when we found out about it, it's like, wow, this is like a brewery that it encapsulates all the things I talk about on the show.
Right on. Yeah.
And I was like, how is it so close to us? That's another serendipitous thing. And what's the background of the brewery? Like, when did it start?
Well, so Matt Shirley and myself, Matt runs a catering company, Northern Fork, and he used to have a kitchen over at like Chicago and Milwaukee.
Okay.
That was one of their industrial kitchens. So we started doing, this is like 2008, started doing all grain brewing out of there because we could. We had this big kitchen, we could make a mess. And like pretty quickly, we realized that like this is pretty rad. Like it like kind of involves both like a creative element, but then also there's physical labor, there's problem solving. Like it's kind of checked all the boxes for us. So like pretty shortly after that, within the next couple of years, we started trying to kick around different business models that we thought might work. Thought was the operative word. And then I think we moved into our old place, which was over in Fulton Market in 2013.
Okay.
It's like the basement of an old Nabisco factory. This incredible human being that's now passed, Hey You was his name. He owned the building, and there was like a coffee roaster down the hall. Mm-hmm. There was a furniture maker next to us. There's a knife maker down the hall. So you had this little kind of like working salon of different artisans, and we moved in down there in like 2013.
Yeah.
And then we finally got licensed in 2015. Before we were licensed, we brewed out of Una who now is also kind of in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They were about I don't know, about a half mile down Hubbard from us originally.
Okay. I was wondering why because it's called Hubbard's Cave. Is the
yeah. So they were originally at like Hubbard and not Paulina, but Hubbard and something over there. There's like a Midas or something that they were right by.
Okay.
So we brewed out of there. We did our first batch of Orange Sunshine out of there under their license and distributed it that way. Brewed with them for about 6 months, and then we finally got our license for Richard's Place, and then and so we at that point. So Maddie and I started it, and at that point, I think about a year before that, Jason Monk came on, and we kind of cobbled together about $30,000, which is like nothing, you know. Yeah. But with that money, we were able to. Jay built out the brew house. We got some kegs, we got some materials. Really just kind of like put it together by our wits more than anything, and we were able to make beer and get it on tap next to multinational brands, which was pretty cool. And then we basically just fed back into the brewery with revenue from there. About 2017, we started canning. We did that through Great Central, which is a brewery that was close to us there. They're still over there in the West Loop. And they started doing the canning, or we were just doing bottling. We were doing bombers. There was still the time when you could do bombers, which is the salad days, kind of, especially for maybe not so much for the drinkers, but for the producers. I mean, like being able to make bombers is like why we had so much of a growth of like breweries like our size, like Pipeworks, Spiteful. We're all able to kind of get into the package, the off-premise beer game for very cheap, right? And the other nice thing about bombers was, I don't know if this is too in the weeds or not, but like we could sell I think we made the same amount of money on like a 15-barrel batch of beer that in bombers that we make on like a 50-barrel batch of beer in cans. Because there's just so much more money and overhead that goes into doing the cans, and obviously the equipment for canning is a lot more. So having the bombers, having that huge margin on the bombers was really built a lot of businesses with that. And it kind of changed the game quite a bit when the bomber market just dried up overnight, basically, in about 2017.
But it wasn't anything like regulatory or...
No, it was just like once people got sick of the 22, or in our case, the 25-ounce bombers, that like you always had to share it with somebody, which I always thought was nice, kind of like... Beer is kind of a community building thing, right. And so it's nice to have a format that you can share with other people. But the buyer didn't like that, especially when they realized that like, well, this bomber costs $14.99, I get 22 ounces out of it, or I can get a 4-pack for $15.99, and I get 64 or 72 ounces out of that. So they did the math, and people wanted. Plus, cans are they're less breakable. You don't have to share them as much. They look better, I think.
True, yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of like we were one of the last holdout breweries before moving over to canning, because we really didn't want to. But then 2017 came around and started canning. We still did a few bombers, and then now we've been all cans, I think, since like early 2018, middle 2018. And then we moved up to Norwood Park. Signed the lease on the place in Norwood Park in September of 2019. Okay. And then the world fell apart for a minute there, and we finally got everything open, got the city through, and got licensed by August of 21.
Oh, right, yeah, because you guys just did the 3-year anniversary party.
Yep.
Which I was there.
Right on.
Had a blast.
Right on. It was fun, right? Yeah. It was a good night.
Yeah, that was the dunk tank and the live bands.
We brought the dunk tank back. We had bands at night, and during the day we did, because we, as part of the 3-year, previous years we had done like a carnival kind of thing, which we were just getting bored with. We kept the dunk tank from it, but this year instead, a friend of mine, Stephen Intermill, is the curator at this amazing museum in Cleveland, Ohio, the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. And it was started in D.C., I believe, in the 60s by Raymond Buckland, who wrote kind of a seminal text of Wicca back in the day. And so it started just as like his his kind of ritual gear and ephemera, and then over the last 40 years or whatever, they've collected other pieces. Like they have Aleister Crowley's wand, they have stuff from Kenneth Grant, they have stuff from Chicago's Michael Berdio, a great collection, Lon Milo de Ketz, like kind of Pantacle. It's great, and they've got an amazing Ouija board collection. So anyway, so I met Steven through this event that we do. So we do a beer for this podcast, Weird Studies. Mm-hmm. And they've been, for the past 2 years, they've been the keynote speaker at this event in Lilydale, New York. Do you know what Lilydale is?
No.
So Lilydale is like, it's a spiritualist enclave, or a spiritualist hamlet, basically.
Yeah.
That was started when spiritualism was a big deal back in the late 19th century. So this woman, Shannon Taggart, has run this symposium there now for 10 years. It's not spiritualist, but it's just sympathetic to, different odd and interesting endeavors. So it's called like the Science of Things Spiritual Symposium. And so for the past 2 years, Weird Studies has been the keynote for that. So we've started bringing the Weird Studies beer up to that. And it's just been wonderful. Shannon's an amazing human being. Her book, Seance, Dan Aykroyd wrote the introduction to it. But it's basically her study of spiritualism and seances through the photographic lens over about 20 years. And as she was documenting this stuff, she kind of got frustrated with the process and wasn't like getting the shot that she wanted. So she started kind of just monkeying with the camera and kind of using the camera and glitch photography and kind of just trying to, do all the wrong things, to get the tone and the vibe of the room at these seances, which can be, the spiritualists view it as it's part of their core beliefs, right? The talking to the dead, working with the dead to move yourself through this world. They don't see it as a weird or, scary or creepy thing, but there's still, you're working with different intelligences or different dimensions, entities. So there is an uncanny vibe to the thing, and she was able to kind of capture that with these amazing photographs. So that's kind of helped kind of put her on the map, and she's brought amazing speakers every year to this thing. And so I met Steven through that. Long way around the barn there. So and then we right away we started. Steven's a beer fan, and we just hit it off right away. And so we started talking about that 2 years ago, and then finally this year we got the beer done, had them come out, talk about the museum. And we had 3 of the occult stores here from Chicago, and some artists kind of put booths up and stuff like that. So Alchemy Arts was there, and Malloway Brothers, and Sideshow Gallery, amongst other people. So we did kind of like an occult market during the day, and then had Steven talk at about 7:00, and then metal bands at night.
Yeah. That's one of the best things about your brewery, aside from the beer, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And I think it's me and Paul's favorite, at least one of our top 3.
I can't think of the other 2.
It's top 1.
Yeah,
top one.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite right now.
And but the other reason is because you guys do a lot of really great events, you know, and just a broad range too, and not like once every 3 months you guys are doing the murder bingo, you guys are doing the trivia night, you guys are having different varieties of different types of music, bands playing, DJs, and and then obviously the big New Year's Eve parties and all these different kind of events, but also like speakers. You've had speakers there.
Yeah, we had Eric Davis here in April. That was fun. I've known Eric for years. We met him back at Burning Man in 2004. So I used to do a podcast back many moons ago, and Eric wrote a very famous book amongst certain circles. Technosis back in the 90s. And a big fan of that. And so, and Eric there was kind of the 2 kind of literary figureheads at Burning Man were Daniel Pinchbeck and Eric. And we had Daniel on, not on the Playa, but back here in Chicago a couple times. And then we interviewed Eric on the Playa in 2004 and got to be friends with him, and just we've stayed in touch over the years. And we were actually going to have him out at the old place. We were going to do there's this old kind of medieval spell song kind of thing, the 9 Herbs Charm, that was like, it was like a brewery concoction, but there was also this song, poem, but then it was also a spell. So the idea was, this never happened, but the idea was we were going to have Eric come out, talk about the 9 Herbs Charm, and then we were going to let everybody kind of help make this beer version of the 9 Herbs Charm while a band. We really wanted to get Ben Chasney of 6 Organs of Admittance, but the whole thing just never came together, and then the pandemic happened. So finally this year, Eric had a new book out called Blotter, which is like he worked with this guy, Mark McLeod, who has the Institute of Illegal Images in San Francisco, and it's for 50 years now he's been collecting hits of acid. Yeah. And like at some point he realized that like, oh, this is not just a drug medium. This is actually like an artifact and kind of a folk art that is emerging, from a culture, So he started saving some of his doses, some of them, and putting them in frames. Did a gallery show. And from there, kind of gained some legitimacy for the idea of blotter art as legitimate art. And so Eric, after he did his kind of like his magnum opus in 2017, which is High Weirdness, was kind of burned out, and he's buddies with Mark, so he kind of did this kind of fun endeavor, and that's what became the book Blotter. I think it's called A History of an Acid Medium. And it tells a story through Mark's eyes, but then also has a bunch of archival images of classic LSD
old
blotters.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a great book.
I always remember hearing the story of a kid who at Lincoln Park High School who the cops, went to like search him or whatever, so he hid all the blotter like on his stomach, and then he like absorbed it all.
I mean, that's
of course,
that's a perennial story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Changed the high school in the city.
He turned into orange juice.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, so I wanted to ask you, the beer that you did with the occult store, what was it called again?
The Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic.
Yeah. And what's the beer called?
It's the Buckland Bach. It's this one right here
Bach.
with the good old Raymond Buckland there on the can.
Nice.
Holding his crystal wand, looking all witchy poo.
I don't think I've tried this one yet.
It's good. It's 9%.
Yeah.
So it'll get you swifty.
Try a little bit of this. Do you want to share this one, or you
cups
want
or something, or?
I thought we were just gonna shotgun them all.
All right.
Let's do it.
I'll let you guys drink them.
Delicious.
Okay.
Oh, I've had plenty.
We're just gonna pass it over. Old school on the corner style.
Yeah. So, funny thing about the Buckland Bach is that that's when Stephen and I were talking about a beer. Stephen was like, "I love a Bach beer. Let's do a Bach."
Yeah.
And what we found out, much like right before the event, is like he was talking to, I don't know, somebody that had someone in the Buckland estate, and they were like, "Oh, actually, like Raymond's favorite beer style was the Bach." Wow. So it was kind of like just serendipitous nailing of that, which was kind of cool.
That is cool. That's good. I like a Bach or a stout, or I mean, the same family, right? Or no?
I mean, not really. Yeah. I mean, a Bach is German in origin and doesn't have any roasted malts in it. It's more malt forward. I mean, the stout's pretty malt forward, but it's really the roasty character is what makes the stout. Where the Bach is really more about the kind of Vienna malts and that kind of thing. So that's why you get more of that caramely thing to it, as opposed to the roasty coffee.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And then what would be like a porter?
Yeah, God.
You're like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the porter versus stout, I'm going to screw it up. But I think the porter, like, they're both stouts, basically. And at one point in my life, I knew the story there. But the porter is like
I knew there was some connection.
Yeah, there is. You can look it up on the internet.
There's some connection to port wine, I think. I don't know.
Sure.
I think Paul knows, but he doesn't want to tell us.
Not at all.
All right, we got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get a little bit more into some of these crazy beer names and anything you got coming up at the brewery on Think Theory Radio right after this. to Think Theory Radio. This is Damien. Today I'm joined by Brian Buckman from Illuminated Brew Works.
Yes, sir.
IBW local.
Number one.
Number one.
Yeah, IBW Lodge.
Well, I don't know if it was number
one.
2 or not, because it's, I guess technically the Lodge is the number 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's your
I mean,
second
it's not
location.
really according to anything either.
Yeah.
It's
not
number
the
2.
The next one will be number 485.
Like
so.
number 2, someone's garage or something.
Sure. Yeah. It's a meth lab on the south side. But don't tell anybody.
No, of course not. Invite only. All right. Well, a couple things I wanted to talk about, too, because as we were trying to book the show and figure out a date for you to come on, you mentioned, well, today is Mr. Aleister Crowley's birthday.
That's right.
And for those that don't know, why don't you explain who Aleister Crowley is?
Well, Aleister Crowley he's probably the most famous or infamous occultist of the 20th century. He, most people know him through the Ozzy Osbourne song that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
He mispronounces his name in it. Should have run that past committee again one more time.
And he's from England. He should have known.
And he's from England, But yeah, Crowley, he was originally part of the Golden Dawn, which brought the world S.L. McGregor Mathers, who is married to Henri Bergson's sister, W.B. Yeats, Arthur Edward Waite. I mean, quite a few famous, mostly literary people. I think maybe Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was involved at some point. But anyway, Crowley being who he was, like shortly after joining the Golden Dawn, kind of helped to disrupt the whole thing, and there was a big schism. And so Crowley went on to found his own he founded one order and then inherited another, the OTO. And the OTO is probably the more known of the two groups that he's worked with. But I guess the thing that his legacy is that in 1904, he received this channeled text from what he claimed was his holy guardian angel, Iowas, that was kind of like a new dispensation for the world. That it's obviously it's up for conjecture,
right?
But there's been a lot of people who studied it, and there's certainly what can't be argued is that he did kind of nail the just the kind of tumultuous times that we'd be walking into shortly thereafter. And it wasn't about a decade after that when we had the First World War.
Yeah,
we saw kind of mass carnage in a way that had never been seen before. Followed not too long after that by the Second World War. And now, the mess that we have ourselves in now. So I think, and Crowley, I think he was, very famously known as he was called by some yellow journalism in England back in the day, the wickedest man in the world, and he had kind of brought a lot of that on himself. And he, at the very least, he definitely leveraged the bad publicity to his gain, as many people have pointed out, had Crowley been not embraced that or not kind of postured himself as this devilish figure, we probably would have never heard about him. There's plenty of other people, Dion Fortune, other contemporaries that brought maybe not as much, but brought a lot to the table too, that just most people have never heard of, where everybody's heard of Crowley. He was on Sgt. Pepper's. He was, he was in an Ozzy Osbourne song. I think Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden made a kind of a cartoon movie about him. Where some guy was repossessed by Aleister Crowley and went on this murderous rampage. Yeah. It's a great movie.
Well, he was also very enigmatic, and he would do these big crazy parties as well. And he knew how to kind of, he was an artist, essentially, right?
And kind of one of the first media stars, exactly, really learned how to work the media. He did the Rites of Eleusis. And he also, a lesser known fact about him, he was kind of an heir apparent to William James, he's again, this is all up for argument, but it's pretty well documented that he was the first Westerner to work with peyote, and really kind of brought that idea of psychedelics into consciousness and into spiritual work. He was kind of a pioneer of that. Now he also worked for MI6, and he used.
I was going to ask if you knew. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
And he allegedly used some of that. I can't remember what he had a name for his peyote concoction. It starts with an A, and I can't remember now. But he used some of that on some of the people in the kind of the black sites of of MI6.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, like supposedly he moved to the U.S. because MI6 sent him here to like spy on German spies. Or something.
Yeah, I mean he's a wild character. Yeah, he was here in right around the middle of the First World War out in New York, and wound up taking a job with the Motherland, which was like a German kind of propaganda arm. And to his telling is like he basically took that job to undo German support amongst the British and the Americans, because he basically his move on that was to take like the German position and just blow it like to cartoonish ends as a way to just make them look completely absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, was that him trying to save face to the Queen, or was there truth to it? I mean, that's part of the joy of Crowley is like there's just many veils, and you never know where terra firma is.
He was really working.
Yeah, or how many. Yeah,
exactly how many.
Yeah. So
and it's funny too is that in a roundabout way, I'm going to try to link it to this next beer if I can.
Mm-hmm.
So because I remember another person that you're a big fan of that you wanted to talk about was a famous NASA rocket scientist named Mr. Jack Parsons.
John Whiteside Parsons.
Yeah, who was connected to Aleister Crowley.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And L. Ron Hubbard.
And L. Ron Hubbard.
That's the weirdest part to me.
History's
it's
comedian.
both weird, but that one's
the whole world is weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so Parsons was working out of the Agape Lodge in Pasadena while he was also developing solid rocket fuel. And he quickly became kind of the heir apparent for Crowley's legacy. He was going to take over the OTO, but he kind of went off the edge.
Yeah.
Him and Hubbard. So Parsons was running this. Basically bought this mansion with the money he made from the Defense Department developing solid rocket fuels during the war, and I had this mansion in a very Tony part of Pasadena where he would basically give free room and lodging to different bohemian types. And at some point along the way, this young science fiction writer, L. Ron Hubbard, showed up, and they worked together on what became known as the Babylon working. And Babylon is a goddess, a deity that is tied to Enochian magic, and is a big part of the Thelemic, which is Crowley's belief system, Thelemic cosmology. Parsons had the brilliant idea that he was going to do a magical working to incarnate Babylon, the horror of Babylon, onto the planet Earth.
Yeah.
So him and L. Ron went out to I think it was Arroyo Seca, maybe, or it was some desert by Pasadena. I think it was Arroyo Seca, and did these operations. They quickly started having different kind of poltergeist activity back at the parsonage, and ultimately, amongst other things, Hubbard, being who he is, wound up fleecing Parsons out of all his money and taking his wife in a kind of a boat scam, and left Parsons destitute, and he lost his security clearance, and kind of his life fell apart, and then it all kind of was capstoned by he blew himself, or he allegedly blew himself up in an accident in his lab in Pasadena. Now there's speculation as to whether he was killed, possibly by. He was about to move to Israel to do work with the Israeli defense there. So possibly that there was some arm of the Defense Department that had him killed. He also testified against a cop, a dirty cop that had blown up a car of someone, and so Parsons was the kind of the key witness in that. And Parsons died like 3 or 4 days after this guy got out of jail.
Oh, wow. That part of the story I didn't hear, though.
Yeah. So there's speculation that he killed him, but more than likely, Parsons just screwed up. Parsons is a big amphetamine fan and was working late into the night and probably was sweaty and dropped the can of mercury fulminate. blew himself to pieces. But he survived. Like, he survived for like hours afterwards, like as like this mangled
and you've done
shell of a man.
And then you did a beer.
We did,
not this beer, but you did another beer, the
Rachmaninoff, yeah. That was because like when Parsons loved playing Rachmaninoff's Isle of the Dead during his operations, so we did a beer to honor the colorful character that was Jack Parsons, or is Jack Parsons. You never know.
And he also though was a believer in UFOs, and right? Wasn't he kind of?
Yeah, I mean, some people. Yeah, so like Marjorie Cameron Parsons, who became Jack's wife after Hubbard took his other wife. She claimed that while they were doing the Babylon workings, she saw a UFO, which would have made her the first of recent history or documented recent history that had seen a UFO. So this is before the Roswell incident, but shortly before. This is like 94 or 46, maybe early 47. So there's people that there's people that will claim that the Babylon working kind of ripped a hole in the space-time continuum and brought in the
alien entities,
our alien brothers and sisters. But it is interesting that it's all part of that the gestalt of that time. But like shortly after that, you start to have all the UFO sightings. You start to have the beats and rock and roll, and you have this very Dionysian current kind of moving into culture. People try to hang that on Parsons, and maybe he had something to do with that, maybe not. It's impossible to say, but it's a fun thing to think about for sure.
Well, I mean, if it eventually brought in people like Jimi Hendrix and Public Enemy and hip hop, and then all praise to Jack Parsons.
It's all because of Jack Parsons.
And that was my loose segue into introducing the next beer, Your Soul, a UFO.
Yes, yes.
Now, what's the story behind this?
Well, so that one
double
is
dry hop, double India Pale Ale.
That's right. Yeah. So this one was like my little. There's a professor from Rice University, Jeffrey Kripal, who's done a lot for kind of bringing the weird into the institution of Western collegiate studies. He is a professor of religion. So Eric Davis worked under Kripal. I believe Diana Pasulka, who's a bit of a name right now with the UFO UAP thing, she worked with Kripal. Kripal's done a really good job of kind of coalescing and bringing a bunch of different voices into the academy. And he did a book with Whitley Strieber back in 2017, which is where the name came from. That is a phenomenal book. I'm always pushing it on people. It's called The Supernatural, and it's basically a dialogue. It's a literary dialogue between Strieber and Kripal. So Strieber will talk about his Strieber shtick, right? Which is like, he wrote Communion, and is kind of like enigmatically very open about his experience. Like in as much as like he's open about sharing it, but he's also open about just investigating it and not running to a resolve. He's like, look, I don't know what this is. I'm trying to understand it. It's important, and it's happening to a lot of people. Yeah. And so let's think about this. And that was like kind of prime fodder for kind of Kripal's beat, which is like this new way of trying to understand the ineffable, right? So it's that book, The Supernatural, is like this back and forth between Strieber and Kripal, and gives a lot of room for Strieber to explore his thing, and then Kripal to pull that apart and talk about it, about how we need to have new models of thinking about the unknown. Yeah. And so there's a quote on here where this Your Soul UFO comes from. You want me to read it?
Yeah, read the quote while I take another sip.
The soul as a plasma-like energy that can superpower our imaginal capacities and so generate the movies of our visionary experience. Here the soul is an exotic form of energy interacting with a primate nervous system, and the symbol and the mythical narrative are the means of focusing, working with, projecting, and even materializing that energy. A conscious star gently blazing inside a skull, a UFO that has landed for a time in a body brain. But But yeah, that's from the Supernatural. It's a beautiful book, and all the Kripal stuff is pretty incredible.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
We always love book recommendations here on the show. So, and it is also a great beer. I have had this one before.
Okay, right on.
I like it too because it's not as super hoppy as a lot of like the double dried hopped, where you're just like parched after one sip.
Right,
this one's a much smoother drink.
Yeah, we try to keep the stuff balanced and not get too bitter or anything like that. This is a kind of an interesting one because we use this new hop, Luminosa, and it was new to the market last year. And as these things do, especially new hops, they will mutate and change year to year. And so like this year's is like way more kind of like what people call dank. So I hate that word, but like that has for some reason become a descriptor in the beer world, but it's definitely would describe this. Where last year it was like very, very lemon citrus forward. This year has kind of more of an earthiness to it, which is real interesting too. But it's wild to just most people that just drink beer don't realize it or don't think about it, that it really is. It's a living thing into itself. Not only the commodities is a living thing too, but yeah, the malts are gonna be affected by the climate. They're gonna be affected by the state of the freight, state of the freight industry. The hops are also a living thing, and then of course you have the invisible friends that are the microorganisms that actually chew up the sugars and make the magical alcohol.
The fungi family.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And that's the other thing a lot of people don't realize. And we've talked about, we did a couple shows on like the esoteric history of beer and stuff like that. But how, old like beer is in human culture, how like in a lot of ways you could say it saved civilization because of the fermentation and not having polluted water.
Right.
And being able to have kind of like a one nutrient source. Now their beer was different. It was a little more
very different, I'm sure.
Sludgy.
Probably sour. And, some people make the claim that it was like what moved us from hunter-gatherer to agrarian. Yeah. Like once they discovered beer, that's when humanity kind of stopped and was like, okay, we're going to grow this stuff so we can make more of this deliciousness.
And then, and it ties, I just read this book called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. It's all about fungi, like in every different kind of facet from, psilocybin to truffles or whatever, and all the different. But he had a section too about brewing and how he learned about brewing himself, and he got really into just trying different things. Just like taking an apple and creating some kind of fermented apple drink out of it.
Sure.
And all these, but he got into the whole process of the yeast and these living organisms and how like we're all tied in together. It's really interesting.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. It's a good book. I recommend it.
I just saw some article that I'm not really going to be able to talk too much about, but that they were saying that mushrooms have like the vocabulary of a 2-year-old, like that they speak to one another.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Sorry.
No, but believe me, that's right at home, right here.
It is. Yeah, I wish I knew more than just that from the story. But apparently they do it.
There's a lot of the interesting thing too that like mycology is such a young field, and even though fungi and mushrooms and everything have been a part of human history for thousands of years.
Critical part. Yeah.
We don't really know that much about it, and there isn't a lot of funding in the mycology world. It's changing now; it's becoming more popular. It's more people have different kind of mushroom pills and drinks and all these different things. So I think it is changing our understanding of it, but there's still so much we don't know. Like the word symbiotic comes from lichens.
Okay.
And how the lichens are actually these two different, it's algae and fungi to get fungi together.
Okay.
And that the original, I forget the scientist's name, whatever, the researcher, about 50 years ago, whatever, came up with that idea symbiosis because of that. But now with further technology and research, they realize that it's actually like 1,000 different organisms, and then it relates to how we are, and our body itself, and how many different organisms they are, how it ties into all the different organisms on Earth, and it just creates this much more understanding of the interconnectedness that we are to the planet if we study fungi, and it's the closest in DNA to humans.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, that's wild.
Right?
I thought it was something like they're like more similar to insects than plants, but I don't know if that has to do with the DNA.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. But
yeah.
I did, in the book, it talked about that. Like, the DNA of fungi is like very close. It's closer to us than any other plant life or something like that. I forget what it was.
No
but
kidding.
I have my own theory that our brains are actually fungi, that it's like a symbiotic creature that crawled into a primate back in the day. I mean, and that's why you feel like your brain is something else than yourself.
Yeah.
It's just a living mushroom inside. Paul's shaking his head.
I believe it. Yeah. I think you're right.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of Illuminated Brew Works and Think Theory Radio right after this. Welcome back to Drink Theory Radio.
We've done that one.
I know. But it's apropos, man.
I know. I think as soon as you started the episode and, like, you know, your beer delights or whatever, people are like, man, another beer episode?
I know.
This is a good one, though.
Yeah. Plus, it's like, when was the last one? It's got to be like 6 months ago or something.
You know,
could never do too many beer episodes.
It could have been 6 months ago. To me, it feels like it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
or I
right.
might have just mentioned. No, you know what? Because I did the esoteric. What was it? The Alchemy of Alcohol.
Oh,
was an episode about 2 months, 2 or 3 months ago. We did.
Okay.
I had a buddy of mine, Will, who's a bartender extraordinaire, knows all cocktails and everything. So we just talked about the kind of history of alcohol and how it ties into human history, and of course beer was involved, but also like cocktails and how it goes back to like medicinal brews, and it's interesting.
August.
So, see, so it's a couple months ago. Yeah. So you're halfway right.
Is he an alchemist?
He is not an alchemist, though.
Okay.
That was just the name I came up with because
Okay.
brewing is kind of like alchemy.
It is, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And even making cocktails. Like, you're taking these different ingredients that sometimes, especially really good cocktail makers can develop these recipes where, wouldn't think that you would go together. Like I had a drink that was like avocado with a little bit of an IPA, mezcal, and bitters. And it was amazing. I didn't think.
What did the avocado do?
It was kind of created the creamy texture to it.
Okay.
So it was green. It looked, and they even served it in the little stone bowl with avocado pit on the inside.
Oh, cool.
So it looked like a bowl of guacamole, but soupy.
Wow.
And it was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd you get that?
I think this is a perfect time to segue into Ecto Slushy.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Speaking of green stuff.
But I had that down in Oaxaca, actually.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Did you have any pulque down there?
I did.
What do you think of that?
Oh, I love it.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like it, it was really, so my brother lives down there.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You told me that.
Yeah. And, we're trying out these different places, and of course you have like the trendy pulquerias, and we asked somebody, like a local, we're like, where's a good, locals? Where do the locals go?
Yeah.
And she told us about this place, and we look it up, and it's like 4 blocks away from my brother's apartment. It's like, oh, perfect. So we go over there, and of course it was off the beaten path. It wasn't in downtown. So we got these huge like pitcher ceramic big mugs for like, $2 or whatever it was. It's like 8 pesos or something, and different flavors, like orange ones, fruit punch ones.
Did they have that real like kind of Brettanomyces note to them, like that kind of horse blanket, like that real funk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
it's
the
almost
beauty of it.
Like it's almost like a kind of like an aloe. Not the taste, but like the consistency.
The consistency,
like,
kind of saliva-y.
Yeah, but the taste, it's like that. I guess you described it, because I wouldn't be able to describe it.
Yeah, I mean that's a term that people use in the beer world for Brettanomyces, which is a wild yeast that they say horse blanket, which I think is it's kind of nails it. But like I always get like from Brett, which is even a weirder descriptor, I always say it's like corduroy. Like there's almost like a texture to it that is kind of fascinating. But yeah,
I think because it has that kind of like a fermented drink where it has that little bit of a fizzle. Maybe that's giving you that kind of corduroy kind of.
Well,
texture.
yeah, no, there's actually there's a taste it's
like tasting
you're getting
sound.
in these subjective realms of sensory and Like I've said that to so many people, and everybody just looks at me like, "What are you even talking about?"
I know what you mean, though. It's a very unique flavor, taste, texture.
Horse blanket. Let's just say
horse blanket.
Woolly.
It doesn't say. That makes it sound like it doesn't taste good, though. But I feel like it does taste good.
It tastes phenomenal. Yeah, I'm crazy about it.
And I feel like when I drank it, I felt healthy. I don't know if it was a placebo, but
that's in your head. Yeah, I don't think it was healthy.
I was like, I feel rejuvenated from the.
Because part of the reason we can't get pulque here, I actually saw somebody had a commercial pulque, which I was very skeptical of, but like you can't stop it from fermenting. Like,
right.
So it'll just basically just ferment into,
osmosis,
pure ethyl alcohol, and so you can't really ship it up here. So you can only get it in Mexico.
Right, unless somebody makes it here.
Unless somebody makes it here, yeah.
I know there is I saw a Mexican restaurant on Fullerton. I haven't been there yet, but I saw the sign in the window says they have pulque.
I'm skeptical.
I know, that's the same thing. I'm like, I kind of want to try it, but I'm disappointed. Now, Heat said it, good segue, because we're talking about green drinks.
Sure.
And the time of year.
Oh, the most wonderful time of year.
Yes. And it is Ecto Slushy.
Ecto
is the next
Slushy,
one.
yeah. So this is one of our slushies. So it's not a beer per se. It's what our head of sales guy came up with. Is what's he called? A hard sparkling fruit beverage. Because we kept calling them seltzers because it is a seltzer base. But then everybody thought it'd be like a Truly or something like that. But it's a seltzer base, so it's nice and neutral. And then there's like 30% fruit per volume, right? So it's basically kind of like a Jamba Juice, with booze in it. This one in particular is it's a nod to the Ecto Cooler that was, I think, a little bit before my time, but we've had other people that came through our place that were crazy about the Ecto Cooler, and they're like, you got to make this Ecto Cooler drink. Okay, so it's all tangerine. This one, a lot of our slushies are like a mix of different fruits, where this one is straight tangerine. So it's like 30% tangerine puree into the seltzer, and then we made it green because why not? Because people love green stuff. It's
Ecto too.
It's Ecto, right? Slimer. That's right. Yes, yeah.
There's a
seen
reason.
The movie. There is a reason. There is a reason.
The description on it is my favorite part.
Oh boy!
It's like our brewer Dave demanded we honor the ghost-busting season rightly with a nod to his favorite beverage from his favorite movie of all time. This slushy thing has our regular seltzer base and is loaded with 2 pounds per BBL. What is that?
Barrel. So it's 31 gallons.
Okay, of tangerine puree to give you all the vitamins, minerals, and booze you need to keep your strength up and courage primed for some good old-fashioned ghost busting, if that's your thing. Also, this is supposed to be green. We'll see how that turns out. Oh, and he wanted me to say something about seltzer and slime living together in mass hysteria. Apparently, that is a quote from the movie or something.
Is that from the original movie or a part 2?
Or maybe the cartoon. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
There's so many now.
I don't know. There are so many now.
It is good stuff too.
It's fun.
It's it's a fun drink. I would say that
it is. I went out of my way to buy a 4-pack or 6-pack of it last year.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you only make it in this time of year.
We only do it. Yeah, we do it once a year for Halloween. Yeah.
Perfect timing. Of course. All right, the Ecto Slushy.
It tastes great. It's especially because it's like fresh for the season, so it's like you're not getting like an old batch. Now, if it's like February and someone gave you an Ecto Slushy, maybe it's not as good, but it's still good though. Right?
They hold up better than the double dry hops. Those are the ones that they really like. You got about 3 months on those.
Yeah.
The slushies hold up a lot better. Warren Christmas holds up pretty good too. But yeah, the shelf life of the double dry hops, because they're so fragile with the oils from the hops, and that's the first thing that goes. So like if you had like that UFO, in another 4 months, you're gonna have almost no hop character to it. But like the slushy, that'll live forever.
Okay.
It'll live forever.
Okay. So because of the seltzer and slime chaotic thing.
Living in perfect harmony. Yes.
All right, well, we only got like 5 minutes left, so we might as well get to another beer.
Lightning round of beer.
Lightning round. Slam them all, man. All right, because we got what?
So we got Science of Imaginary Solutions, Fnord, and Warren Christmas. That's it. And 666.
Oh, yeah.
Slushy 666. We don't need to do another slushy, though.
Okay.
This is the one we just did. That's the Science of Imaginary Solutions. That was a collaboration with our friends over at Omega Yeast. So Omega is over on Montrose here in the beautiful
So
city
you're
of Chicago.
rocking the hat.
That's right.
Represent.
That's right. They gave me that. I like the style of hat, so I thought I'd never take it off. But yeah, so we've done 2 collaborations with them. This is with the new yeast that they have called Daybreak, and this is a West Coast IPA that is called the Science of Imaginary Solutions, which was a French kind of precursor to Dadaism. Alfred Jarry came up with the Science of Imaginary Solutions, or pataphysics.
Petaphysics.
Pataphysics.
Pataphysics.
Not petaphysics. That's a different thing
I was like,
altogether.
I hope that's not. It could be PETA.
PATA physics.
Petaphysics.
Yeah, petaphysics.
The physics
Just
of
makes you really
saving
sad.
animals, right?
I think petaphysics would be foot related.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
it's
patophysics.
and
Yeah.
the,
All right, we're
the
getting
weird
into
territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like foot physics.
We're on
either,
some
so-
lists now.
So, what about Francois Rabelais? Was he part of that too? Or no?
Well, so no, he's a predecessor. Rabelais was well before Jarry, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you could say that maybe Rabelais dabbled in what would become pataphysics at some point, but yeah, pataphysics was this fake science that Jarry came up with that was essentially like, studying the imaginal as if it were real.
Okay.
Just kind of fun, kind of cool, and then I think probably most people's connection to pataphysics is from Bang Bang Maxwell Silver's hammer. Say Maxwell's silver hammer, right? Joan was a
okay.
quizzical, studied pataphysical science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of was it John Ford, like Fordianism?
Yeah,
where
yeah.
It's kind of the similar kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Could John Fort be a pataphysician? I mean, I think he might make the claim that his damnable materials were all real, though. Not of the imagination.
It's just about questioning everything.
That's right. I mean, you could do a whole show on Ford.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
Have you done that yet?
No, I haven't.
You should.
I know.
He was
His name's been
incredible.
brought up, but I haven't done a whole show on it. Yeah, that would be good.
What about John Keel?
No.
The Mothman prophecies and the
I've talked about the Chicago
Tower.
Mothman, but
Yeah. What's he doing these days? What's the Chicago Mothman?
I have not. There hasn't been any reports since like last year, I think.
Like a decade.
No. Like
No.
last year, there was one where somebody at O'Hare, a worker at O'Hare,
Yeah.
saw it like running at them.
And there was a bunch during the pandemic.
Yeah, of course.
Wait,
Yeah.
there's more than one Mothman?
Well, that's one of the questions.
Okay.
There might be a whole family at this point,
Yeah.
Mothmen have strong libidos, I hear.
My pragmatic explanation is it's actually one of those golden flying foxes. Have you ever seen those from Asia? They're huge bats.
Okay.
They're like 7-foot wing diameter, and they like stand like 4 feet tall.
What are they doing in Chicago?
Well, people, smuggle in exotic animals, and they let it go, and then people see it on top
They
of a
get
light
sick
pole
of their
standing.
flying
Yeah,
fox.
yeah.
And yeah.
It's like the crocodile in Humboldt Park.
Sure.
Well, we have run out of time.
Well,
We didn't even get to all the beer. That's okay, because we'll have you back on.
All
Or
right.
We'll do a show at the brewery or something. We'll figure it out.
right on.
Thanks to Brian Buckman from Illuminated Brew Works. Address
6186 Northwest Highway.
in Norwood Park, Chicago, Illinois. Go check them out. And we'll be back again next Saturday and every Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. right here on WCPT Think Theory Radio.